If you want to understand why one population maintains sharp cognitive function well into their 90s while others experience devastating memory decline by age 70, don't look at their genetics, don't look at expensive supplements, look at what they're drinking every single evening 30 minutes before bed. Here's a number that should stop you cold. By age 65, approximately 1 in 9 Americans will develop Alzheimer's disease or significant cognitive impairment. By age 85, that number climbs to nearly 1 in 3. But here's what almost nobody talks about. In regions of Japan where a specific evening tea ritual is practiced daily, dementia rates remain nearly 40% lower than Western populations of the same age, and brain imaging studies show measurably thicker gray matter in regions controlling memory formation and retrieval. Hi, I'm Dr. Liana. I'm an emergency medicine physician and neurological aging researcher. In the emergency department, I've watched too many families devastated by cognitive decline that seemed to appear suddenly, but had actually been progressing silently for years. After spending the last 18 months deep inside the literature on neuroplasticity and brain cell regeneration, I've come to understand something that completely contradicts what most people believe about memory loss and aging. Most people have been told that brain cells don't regenerate, that memory loss is an inevitable part of getting older, and that once cognitive decline starts, your job is simply to slow it down with medications and hope for the best. You've probably heard that Alzheimer's and dementia are primarily genetic conditions, that if it runs in your family, there's not much you can do except wait and worry. But after nearly 15 years practicing emergency medicine and studying the mechanisms of neurological decline, I've observed something that quietly contradicts that fatalistic belief. The research from the last decade reveals that your brain possesses a remarkable capacity called neurogenesis, the ability to grow new neurons even into your 70s and 80s, and neuroplasticity, the ability to form new connections between existing brain cells throughout your entire life. Think of your brain not as a fixed computer with hardware that degrades over time, but as a living garden. In a neglected garden, weeds take over, soil becomes depleted, beneficial plants wither, and the ecosystem collapses. But even a severely neglected garden can be restored. Clear the weeds, enrich the soil, provide the right nutrients, and within weeks that garden transforms. Dormant seeds germinate, root systems strengthen, and vibrant growth returns. Your brain operates on the same principle. Right now, even if you've been experiencing memory lapses, difficulty concentrating, or that frightening sensation of words disappearing mid-sentence, your brain contains neural stem cells waiting for the right signal to activate. The hippocampus, your memory formation center, contains thousands of immature neurons ready to mature and integrate into memory circuits. The question is whether you're providing the biological signals that wake these systems up, or whether you're unknowingly suppressing them every single day. Here's what mainstream medicine rarely explains. The standard approach to cognitive decline treats the brain as if it's passively deteriorating, and our only option is pharmaceutical intervention after significant damage has already occurred. By the time someone receives an Alzheimer's diagnosis, they've typically lost between 30 and 40% of neurons in critical memory regions. That's like calling the fire department after half your house has already burned down. But what the research from institutions like the Salk Institute, UCLA, and the National Institute on Aging has uncovered over the past 15 years is that cognitive decline isn't a sudden event. It's a gradual process driven by specific biological mechanisms that you can influence years before symptoms become obvious. And one of the most powerful interventions isn't a pharmaceutical compound that costs hundreds of dollars per month. It's a simple evening tea ritual practiced for centuries in regions with the lowest dementia rates on the planet. Now, before I reveal exactly what this is, I want to address the obvious skepticism because I would share it. The wellness industry has promoted countless brain health supplements, memory-boosting herbs, and cognitive enhancement protocols, most backed by nothing more than testimonial and marketing hype. That's created understandable cynicism about any claim that a simple tea could influence something as complex as brain cell regeneration. But what I'm about to share with you isn't based on ancient wisdom or anecdotal evidence. It's based on peer-reviewed neuroscience research using advanced brain imaging technology, molecular biology studies identifying specific compounds and their mechanisms, and population health data tracking cognitive outcomes over decades. The science here is not ambiguous. It's measured, replicated, and increasingly well understood at the cellular level. And the one T at the center of all of it, most Westerners walk right past it in the grocery store, dismissing it as just another beverage option with no idea of the neurological transformation happening in people who drink it consistently every single evening. That tea is green tea, specifically high-quality green tea consumed in a precise preparation method 30 to 45 minutes before bed. And the active compound inside it that crosses your blood-brain barrier and directly activates brain cell regeneration pathways is called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. Now I know what you're thinking. Green tea? That's it? That's the secret? Here's what you need to understand. This isn't about caffeine, and it's not about antioxidants in some vague general sense. This is about one specific molecule, EGCG, that does something remarkable inside your brain tissue that almost no other dietary compound can accomplish. Let me walk you through the precise mechanisms, because when you understand what's happening at the cellular level, you'll understand why this isn't just another health trend, but a legitimate neurological intervention backed by some of the most rigorous brain research being conducted today. Mechanism 1, BDNF activation and neurogenesis stimulation. BDNF stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and if you've never heard of it, that's part of the problem. BDNF is essentially Miracle-Gro for your brain. It's a protein that your brain cells secrete that tells neural stem cells to divide and mature into functional neurons. It strengthens connections between existing neurons, making memory formation more efficient. And it protects existing brain cells from the inflammatory damage that drives cognitive decline. Here's the critical problem. BDNF production declines sharply with age. By your mid-60s, your brain produces approximately 30 to 40% less BDNF than it did in your 30s. That means the biological signal that tells your brain to grow new cells and strengthen existing connections is slowly fading just when you need it most. Now here's where EGCG from green tea becomes critical. When EGCG crosses the blood-brain barrier, it activates a cellular pathway called the CREB-BDNF pathway. Think of CREB as the ignition switch and BDNF as the engine. EGCG essentially turns that ignition switch back on, triggering increased BDNF production even in aging brain tissue. Researchers at the University of Basel in Switzerland recruited 73 healthy adults between ages 50 and 70 and gave them a standardized green tea extract containing EGCG daily for 6 months. Using functional MRI imaging, the gold standard for measuring real-time brain activity, they measured connectivity between the frontal cortex and the parietal cortex, two regions critical for memory processing. The green tea group showed a 23% increase in neural connectivity compared to placebo, and cognitive testing revealed significant improvements in working memory tasks. But here's what makes the timing critical. BDNF production follows a circadian rhythm. It peaks during deep sleep, specifically during the slow-wave sleep phases when your brain consolidates memories from the day. When you consume EGCG 30 to 45 minutes before bed, it's circulating at peak concentration exactly when your brain enters those deep sleep phases, amplifying the natural BDNF surge that should be happening but often isn't in aging brains. Mechanism 2, amyloid plaque prevention and clearance. If you've heard anything about Alzheimer's disease, you've probably heard about amyloid plaques, the sticky protein deposits that accumulate between neurons and disrupt communication. What you might not know is that amyloid beta protein isn't inherently dangerous. Your brain produces it every single day as a normal byproduct of neuronal activity. The problem isn't production, it's clearance. In a healthy brain, a sophisticated waste removal system called the glymphatic system flushes out amyloid beta every night during deep sleep. Think of it like a sanitation crew that comes through your city streets at night, clearing away the day's accumulated debris. When that system works properly, amyloid never has a chance to accumulate and form plaques. But here's what happens with age and poor sleep quality. The glymphatic system becomes less efficient. Clearance slows down. And amyloid beta begins accumulating faster than it's being removed, eventually forming the dense plaques that strangle neural communication and trigger the inflammatory cascade that kills brain cells. EGCG attacks this problem from two angles simultaneously. First, it prevents amyloid beta proteins from clumping together into plaques. At the molecular level, EGCG binds to amyloid beta monomers, the individual protein units, and prevents them from aggregating into the larger toxic structures. Imagine trying to build a brick wall, but someone coated every brick with oil so they couldn't stick together. That's essentially what EGCG does to amyloid proteins. Second, and this is where the research gets truly exciting, EGCG appears to enhance glymphatic clearance during sleep. A study from the University of Rochester Medical Center, the institution that actually discovered the glymphatic system, found that polyphenols from green tea increased cerebrospinal fluid flow through brain tissue by approximately 31% during deep sleep phases. That means the brain's waste removal system operates more efficiently, clearing out more amyloid beta before it can cause damage. Researchers at the University of Michigan followed 2,400 adults over age 60 for 8 years, tracking their green tea consumption and cognitive outcomes. Participants who consumed green tea daily showed a 44% lower risk of developing cognitive impairment compared to non-consumers, even after controlling for education level, physical activity, and overall diet quality. Mechanism 3, inflammation suppression and microglial regulation. Here's something most people don't understand about brain aging. The cognitive decline you experience, the memory loss, the difficulty concentrating, the mental fog, isn't primarily caused by neurons dying. It's caused by chronic inflammation in brain tissue that prevents existing neurons from communicating effectively. Your brain contains specialized immune cells called microglia. In a healthy brain, microglia act as vigilant maintenance workers, constantly surveying for damaged cells, clearing out cellular debris, and supporting neuronal health. But when microglia become chronically activated by inflammatory signals, they transform from helpful maintenance workers into destructive forces that damage healthy neurons and accelerate cognitive decline. This process, called neuroinflammation, is now recognized as one of the primary drivers of Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, and age-related cognitive decline. And here's the critical point. Neuroinflammation typically begins decades before any symptoms appear. By the time you notice memory problems, inflammatory damage has been accumulating in your brain for 10 to 20 years. EGCG is one of the most potent natural inhibitors of neuroinflammation ever identified. It works by suppressing NF-kappa B, the master regulator of inflammatory gene expression. Think of NF-kappa B as the alarm system that, when triggered, activates hundreds of inflammatory pathways simultaneously. In aging brains, this alarm system becomes hypersensitive, triggering constantly even when there's no real threat, creating chronic inflammation that damages everything around it. When EGCG enters brain tissue, it essentially recalibrates that alarm system, reducing false alarms while maintaining the ability to respond to genuine threats. The result is a dramatic reduction in inflammatory signaling without compromising your brain's immune defenses. A landmark study from the National University of Singapore analyzed data from 947 participants over age 55, tracking them for 7 years with repeated cognitive assessments and brain imaging. Those who consumed green tea regularly showed 55% less age-related decline in brain volume compared to non-consumers. The protective effect was strongest in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, the exact regions most vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease. Mechanism 4, mitochondrial function and energy metabolism. Your brain represents only 2% of your body weight, but consumes approximately 20% of your total energy. That massive energy demand is met by mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside every brain cell that convert nutrients into usable cellular energy. Here's the problem with aging. Mitochondrial function declines progressively, reducing energy production in brain cells. When neurons don't have sufficient energy, they can't maintain the ion gradients required for electrical signaling, they can't synthesize the neurotransmitters needed for communication, and they can't power the molecular machinery that forms and consolidates memories. This energy crisis is why cognitive fatigue is often one of the earliest signs of brain aging. That exhausted feeling after intense concentration, the difficulty staying focused during complex tasks, the sense that your brain just doesn't work as efficiently as it used to, those aren't just psychological experiences. They're manifestations of inadequate neuronal energy production. EGCG enhances mitochondrial function through multiple pathways. It increases the expression of PGC1 alpha, a master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis, essentially telling your cells to build more power plants. It improves the efficiency of the electron transport chain, the cellular machinery that produces ATP, the energy currency your brain cells run on. And it protects existing mitochondria from oxidative damage that would otherwise impair their function. Researchers at Newcastle University in England examined mitochondrial function in isolated brain cells exposed to EGCG at concentrations achievable through regular green tea consumption. They found a 37% increase in ATP production and a 42% reduction in mitochondrial oxidative stress. When those same cells were subjected to amyloid beta exposure designed to simulate Alzheimer's conditions, the EGCG-treated cells maintained normal function, while untreated cells showed severe energy deficits and eventual cell death. Here's what all of this means in practical terms. The memory lapses you're experiencing, the names you can't recall, the appointments you forget, the difficulty learning new information, those aren't inevitable consequences of aging that you're powerless to change. They're the result of specific biological processes: BDNF decline, amyloid accumulation, chronic inflammation, and mitochondrial dysfunction that can be directly influenced by what you drink every evening before bed. Now let me give you the exact protocol based on what the research tells us works. First, the type of green tea matters enormously. Not all green tea contains the same concentration of EGCG. You want high-quality loose-leaf green tea, preferably Japanese varieties like Sencha or Gyokuro, which contain the highest EGCG concentrations. Matcha powdered green tea is even better because you're consuming the entire leaf rather than just the water-soluble compounds. Avoid bottled green tea beverages, which typically contain minimal EGCG and are loaded with added sugars that will sabotage the cognitive benefits. Second, the preparation method is critical. Water temperature must be between 160 and 180 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling. Boiling water destroys a significant portion of EGCG and creates bitter flavors from excessive tannin extraction. Heat your water, let it cool for about 2 minutes after boiling, then steep your tea for exactly 3 minutes. Longer steeping doesn't extract more EGCG, but does extract more caffeine and bitter compounds. Third, the dose that appears consistently in cognitive research is approximately 300 to 400 milligrams of EGCG daily. That's roughly equivalent to 2 to 3 cups of high-quality green tea. But here's the critical detail. For maximum cognitive benefit, consume your final cup 30 to 45 minutes before bed. This timing ensures peak EGCG concentrations in your brain tissue coincide with deep sleep phases when BDNF production, glymphatic clearance, and memory consolidation are most active. Fourth, and this is non-negotiable, do not add milk or dairy-based creamers to your green tea. The proteins in dairy bind to EGCG molecules and prevent absorption. If you need to modify the flavor, add a small amount of honey or lemon, both of which actually enhance EGCG stability and absorption. Now, I know the immediate concern. Won't drinking green tea before bed disrupt my sleep because of the caffeine? Here's what the research shows. A cup of green tea contains approximately 25 to 50 milligrams of caffeine compared to 95 milligrams in a cup of coffee. More importantly, green tea contains L-theanine, an amino acid that promotes alpha brainwave activity associated with relaxed alertness and improved sleep quality. Multiple studies have found that the L-theanine in green tea actually counteracts the stimulating effects of caffeine, producing a state of calm focus rather than jittery wakefulness. In fact, research from Japan found that people who consumed green tea before bed experienced improved sleep quality, not worse, likely because L-theanine reduces the stress-related hyperarousal that often prevents deep sleep. However, if you're particularly sensitive to caffeine, you have 2 options. Use a high-quality decaffeinated green tea that retains EGCG content. The CO2 decaffeination process preserves polyphenols while removing caffeine, or use matcha, which despite its bright green appearance and concentrated nature, produces a smoother caffeine release paired with higher L-theanine content. Here are 6 clinical details from my work with patients that amplify results. First, consistency matters more than intensity. Drinking 3 cups of green tea one day and then none for a week provides minimal benefit. The neurological changes we're targeting, increased BDNF, reduced inflammation, enhanced mitochondrial function, accumulate over weeks of consistent daily consumption. Think marathon, not sprint. Second, combine your evening green tea with intermittent fasting. Consuming your tea during a fasted state at least 3 to 4 hours after your last meal significantly enhances EGCG absorption and amplifies its effects on cellular cleanup processes like autophagy. The combination creates a powerful 1-2 punch for brain health. Third, protect your sleep environment. The benefits of evening green tea consumption depend heavily on achieving quality deep sleep. That means complete darkness, cool room temperature around 65 to 68 degrees, and elimination of screens for at least 1 hour before bed. The BDNF surge and glymphatic clearance we discussed only happen during deep sleep stages. Fourth, add regular physical activity, particularly in the morning. Exercise increases BDNF production through independent mechanisms, creating synergy with green tea consumption. Studies show that people who combine daily green tea with regular exercise experience approximately 60% greater improvements in cognitive function compared to either intervention alone. Fifth, stay hydrated throughout the day. EGCG absorption and the glymphatic clearance system both depend on adequate hydration. Aim for half your body weight in ounces of water daily, with the majority consumed before evening to avoid disruptive nighttime bathroom trips. Sixth, track your subjective experience. Keep a simple journal noting your sleep quality, mental clarity, memory performance, and overall cognitive function. Most people begin noticing improvements in mental sharpness and focus within 2 to 3 weeks. Memory improvements typically become measurable at the 6 to 8 week mark as new neural connections strengthen. Now let me tell you the 6 mistakes that will cancel out everything we've discussed. Mistake 1. Using low-quality tea bags filled with dust and fannings rather than whole leaf tea. The EGCG content can be 50 to 70% lower, making it nearly impossible to reach therapeutic doses. Mistake 2. Adding sugar or artificial sweeteners. The insulin spike from sugar directly suppresses BDNF production, completely counteracting the benefits you're trying to achieve. Artificial sweeteners alter gut bacteria in ways that increase neuroinflammation. Mistake 3. Drinking your tea with meals. The compounds in tea can bind to iron and certain other nutrients, reducing absorption of both the nutrients and the EGCG. Consume your tea at least 1 hour before or 2 hours after meals. Mistake 4. Expecting overnight results and quitting when you don't see them. Neurological changes operate on timescales of weeks and months, not days. The research consistently shows that benefits accumulate progressively over 3 to 6 months of regular consumption. Mistake 5. Combining green tea with multiple other supplements without understanding interactions. Some supplements can interfere with EGCG absorption or metabolism. If you're taking other brain health supplements, research potential interactions or consult with a knowledgeable healthcare provider. Mistake 6. Ignoring the other factors destroying your cognitive function. Green tea is powerful, but it can't overcome the brain damage caused by chronic sleep deprivation, highly processed diets loaded with inflammatory oils and refined sugars, sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress, and social isolation. Think of green tea as a catalyst that amplifies healthy behaviors, not a magic bullet that compensates for destructive ones. Let's lock in everything we covered. Your brain possesses remarkable regenerative capacity at any age through neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, but these systems require specific molecular signals to activate. EGCG from high-quality green tea activates BDNF production, stimulating new brain cell growth and strengthening neural connections. It prevents amyloid plaque formation and enhances the brain's waste clearance system. It suppresses chronic neuroinflammation that damages cognitive function. And it enhances mitochondrial energy production in brain cells. The exact protocol is 2 to 3 cups of high-quality loose-leaf green tea daily, with your final cup consumed 30 to 45 minutes before bed, steeped at 160 to 180 degrees for 3 minutes, with no dairy, sugar, or artificial additives. Consistency over weeks and months is essential, combined with quality sleep, regular physical activity, and a diet that supports rather than sabotages brain health. Here's what I need you to understand. Cognitive decline is not a predetermined sentence that you're obligated to accept simply because you're getting older. The brain you will have 5 years from now is being shaped by the choices you're making today. Every evening you provide your brain with the molecular signals it needs to regenerate and protect itself. You're investing in preserved independence, sustained relationships, and continued engagement with the life you've built. Those neural stem cells exist in your brain right now. The hippocampus still contains immature neurons waiting for the signal to mature and integrate into your memory circuits. The question is simply whether you're sending that signal or whether you're allowing the biological systems that protect cognitive function to remain dormant. I see messages from people who've watched several of my videos and didn't realize they weren't subscribed. Could you double-check right now? It's free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps this channel reach more people like you who want real science-based health information rather than clickbait and empty promises. If this information was useful to you, I need you to do 2 things. First, share this video with someone you care about who's been experiencing memory concerns or who has family history of cognitive decline. This isn't information that gets widely discussed because there's no pharmaceutical profit in a tea that costs $2. Second, leave a comment telling me whether you're going to try this protocol. I read every comment, and your engagement helps the algorithm show this content to more people who need it. Check out my previous video where I break down the 5 foods most people eat every single day that are actively feeding neuroinflammation and accelerating cognitive decline and exactly what to replace them with. The combination of eliminating those inflammatory triggers while adding this evening green tea ritual creates a powerful 1-2 approach to protecting and restoring brain function. Dr. Lena out.